I don't know what you can see. I'm so pissed at Susan. Let me try this again. I won't let her win. Susan doesn't get to win. All right. Hey, Aaron. I'm having a hell of a time. Hey, Aaron. I'm having a hell of a time. All right. This is probably the 10th attempt. Not that really. Probably the 5th. If this one doesn't work, though, I give up. But I refuse to let Susan win. Let's see if anyone else shows up, but if not, well, what do you want to talk about, Aaron? The last thing we were talking about before the world went to hell in a handbasket was the usefulness of drones for SHTF. And I guess I should preface my remarks by saying that anytime I think about SHTF, I'm also thinking about militia operations against a still empowered oppressor force. The oligarchs are still in power, and we're in militia operations. To me, that's more likely than, killer zombie plagues and whatnot, or EMPs, which I would prefer. EMP would be this wonderful blessing. I'm about to check this picture and see if it still looks good or looks centered. Oh, it's a really bad quality picture. Killer zombie plague. Hey, Isaac. Yeah, one string to rule them all. I tell you what, I have got to transition to Rumble. This is getting ridiculous. Yeah, no, I agree. You're right, Aaron. The recon ability is fantastic, and to be able to, I envision it more for your base of operations. It doesn't seem like there's something you would take out in the field with you. Oh, maybe you could. And now you can patrol, and you can send out the drone and be like, and see what's going on. Even, but like before you go out in the morning, is there someone set up waiting to, cap my ass? Just run the drone out, look and see, who's hiding behind the rock, waiting to. So I do agree. Drones could have a major role to play in SHTF. Susan, we hate Susan. Oh, Susan. Okay, Kay is. I'm obviously not in good standing with YT. I hope to not bring bad juju to you. YT, I get you. Apparently, you too. YT is. I like that. I might use that from now on. I am also not in good standing with YT. Tackle Homestead, I got a Rumble, but I haven't been able to figure out how to make it work. I haven't been able to upload one single video to it yet. Getting drones with thermal cams are what some guys use for hunting now, and see, I think that is a crazy useful capability right there too. Never quit, never give up, never surrender. Name the movie. Great movie, by the way. I love that movie. Never give up, never surrender. Thermal versus night vision. Sock Wyvern, I think we're coming to the point where there's no difference. That your night vision is going to morph into thermal. And having extensively used both 25 years ago, thermal is a amazing tool. Amazing tool. Now, I had the highest end of the high-end thermal scopes. The TOW missile system had a night sight on it that was top of the line thermal for the time. It even had a little air conditioning unit that cooled it down so we could get better uh, uh, thermal imaging. But you could actually read cami name tapes with that thing. You had to spend some time. There was two adjusters you had to spend a lot of time with and get it dialed into your eyes. But once you had it dialed in, you could read cami name tapes. We would go out into the desert in 29 Palms sometimes where they've got biggest rabbits you've ever seen. The coyotes were scared of rabbits, and you could look at the rabbits and you could see the texture of their fur and individual hairs and stuff. It was amazing. You could see the pattern in the camouflage uniform. 1,100 meters one time. We were doing this night interdiction thing, where they were trying to, sneak up on us, and then they just gave up. You couldn't do it because I could put that night vision in wide field of view and see, a crazy distance, and I don't care what you were hiding behind. I could see the muzzles on sniper rifles. I've told this story before. Please forgive me if you've heard this story before. We were coming out of the field one time, and there was a stay platoon, which is like baby snipers set up in this LZ, and they were doing that training you always see in the movies where they've got to stalk the guy who's on the back of the truck with the binoculars trying to see him, trying to find him. And I was looking at him through the night sight, and one of the training NCOs who was out there with him came over and said, "Hey, we want to fail all these guys. Can you see where they're at?" And I can't remember how many of them were out there. It was like 20 or more, maybe even as many as 30. It was a whole platoon. It was called Stay Platoon. And I said, "Yeah, I know where they all are right now." Because they all had on ghillie suits, and all their rifles were wrapped and everything, and you couldn't see a damn thing except the muzzles of their rifles were exposed. And I could see that our night sight was in shades of red. But it was blazing like this reddish white hot because it was this exposed metal in the middle of the summer. And there was just this bright little reddish white disc. And I could say, oh, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. And I had them all in under a minute because I was looking at them. I knew where they were at. So night vision is an amazing advantage. Simo Haya did well. I don't know who Simo Haya is. Yeah, Isaac's got the point. I want some nods too. That's what the Army calls night vision. Night optical devices, I think, is what they do. The Marine Corps call them NVGs, night vision goggles. But I need to focus my limited budget on the basics like ammo and such for now. That's kind of where I'm at. YSS is still here. They obviously fired up y'all's 5G towers. Wes, you are a born natural. You are the Johnny Carson of the prepper community. Oh, someone said something about scopes versus goggles. I say goggles because scope, you take your rifle down and you're blind. Goggles, it's very hard to see through optics with the goggles now, but it can be done. What do y'all think about Benny Hinn? My brother married a Finn and lived there now. I grew up in the Pentecostal movement, Hunter Kirk. No, Bob 67, I'm sorry, Bob 67 asked about Benny Hinn. I grew up in the Pentecostal movement. Spent a lot of time there. Drank some of the Kool-Aid for a while. I am now very, very far removed from the Pentecostal movement. But Benny Hinn to me represents the farthest you can go down that road and still consider yourself a Christian in my mind. Now, Benny Hinn's been around for a very, very long time, and he's gone through some evolutions too. So he had his whole prosperity gospel phase, and he came out of that. So for me, non-prosperity gospel Benny Hinn is like this close from being too far. I don't interact with his ministry. Even when I was still in the Pentecostal movement, he was too. Benny Hinn's one of those guys where he'll slay people in the spirit, but he'll slay like a whole stadium at one time. He'll be like, "You're slain in the spirit," and like 100 people will fall out. And if you don't know what slain in the spirit means, Isaac, cover your ears. Isaac is our resident dispensationalist. Being slain in the spirit happens in in Pentecostal and charismatic circles, and it's where you you fall down and you can't control your body. Frequently, usually you just lay there, that's being slain in spirit. It's almost like you're unconscious, but sometimes there's like hysterical laughter. My dad used to have that when he was slain in the spirit. He would be in hysterical laughter, couldn't stop himself. Crying, praying in tongues, all this stuff. And being slain in the spirit is kind of the sort of the stereotypical thing. Lots of people make fun of speaking in tongues, but for me, slain in the spirit was, I was like, all right, here we go again. Grandma's gonna fall down. You can tell I don't take it very seriously. But you never want to sit in the seat of the scoffer. God can do whatever he wants. He's God, I'm not. But I have eschewed all of the Pentecostals for a long time now. Okay, at dark 30, thermal is nothing but confusion. Sound is what prolongs one's life. Okay, like I said, that's 25 years ago, and our thermal scope was this really big thing. It was mounted on a yoke, but it was crazy effective. Hunter Kirk, yeah, Finnish Mauser or Mosin. Yeah, the Finns are, God, that's really cool. Take them over for years, and the Germans tried to take them over, and then everyone kind of, no one ever does it somehow. They'll land and they'll make good gains, and then somehow the Finns always win in the end. And so they had just a metric boat ton of. After World War II, they had all these Mausers that they captured from the Germans, like hundreds of thousands of Mausers, and so they stamped them and used them. And then the stupid Soviets invaded in what's called the Winter War and the Continuation War, and tried to take Finland and got their asses handed to them. And the Finns captured like hundreds of thousands of Mosin Nagants. I wonder why they got Nagants. I guess the Soviets were still using the Nagants. Yeah, it took them a long time to stand up the SKS and the AK-40. The AK-47 didn't even get fielded until 1956 in any numbers. So they had all these Mausers and these Mosins, and they preferred the Mosins. They liked to use Russian fighting most of the time, and so they like to be able to use the oppressor's ammunition. This is why I keep pounding on this. So they remarked all these Mausers and these Mosins, and they rechambered. I think they rechambered some of the Mausers for 30-06, if I'm not mistaken. I could be making that up though. But yeah, Finnish Mosins are the only Mosin I own. I have a thing about commie weapons. I won't own Nazi weapons either, though. I've never had the option to own something with the Waffenmark, what the hell that thing? I think it's called the Waffenmark. The Nazi eagle, but I never would. If someone wanted me to buy I got a Mauser with a Waffenmark, I'd be like, no, thank you. I'm not interested in having. Aaron says, I don't judge a person for how they worship, but my style is more conservative Baptist. I struggle. I won't say bitterness. I have a lot of skepticism built up about the Pentecostal movement from my growing up years. Oh, the screen froze. Damn it. Someone let me know if the screen's still frozen. The Makarov is a neat little pistol. I hate commies. Did this whole thing freeze up on me again? Let me catch up with the... I don't see video. Let me catch up with the... at least it's a good picture of me, right? Let's see if this let's see if this unfreezes itself. We'll roll with it. I just don't like commie guns, you know, and part of it is just I don't like commies. And then part of it is all the hype is surrounding the AK-47 for all these years. And I hate it that I hate it, but I hate it, you know. Anyway. Wes says, I like to have a selection of calibers and rifle styles so I can make an appropriate choice of tools. Now, I say all this. I would. It's a historically interesting, it's a mechanically interesting, historically significant rifle. And I am a gun guy. I like guns for themselves. So I would like to own an AK-47. I would like to own an SKS. I'd like to own a Mosin. But like these things, yeah, I know I just said I wouldn't own a Mosin, but I mean I would, but these things are so far down my priority list, you know, it's like, okay, if I have $20 million and I've already bought all the land I can ever look at in my entire life, you know, then, oh, what got deleted? I want to see this. Oh, someone's posting links. Good job, Isaac. Thank you. Oh, and Wes got one too. You know, it's just like, okay, I've got everything else. Let me get this Mosin Nagant if it's a good deal. I like to have both AR and AK just so I'll always have a gun to run the most available ammo if there is more of a shortage. I just don't think that 7.62x39 is going to be that available much longer. I know I've said this before, but Bob says, almost impossible to own firearms here. I'm allowed to have a small Swiss Army knife. That Red Cross, is that Switzerland? Where are you at, Bob? I think you've told us this before, if I'm not mistaken. UK? Bob sounds like a very English thing. We've got a UK friend. I don't think he minds if I use his name. I won't use his name. He's private, but he lives in Ireland. And he has a 12 gauge, but they're real goofy about what ammunition they'll let him own. Like England. Yeah, I thought, Bob, you had said it was. So Bob, can you have the 12 gauge like our Irish friend can? Yes, the Swiss. Yes, the Swiss are, you got your H in there, huh, Isaac? Yeah, the Swiss are, they got machine guns in their house. I think you have to own the machine gun in Switzerland. Bob says he needs a license for the 12 gauge. Well, the 7.62x54 is in that same class as 30-06 and 8mm Mauser and British .303. They're all kind of like right there in the same bailiwick. The 7.62x54 is and the .303 are both older rounds based on essentially black powder rounds. Whereas the 8mm and the 30-06 were both designed as small. I'm not saying the .303 and the 7.62x54 were black powder rounds. I think they were, though. I think they were originally black powder rounds, and then they switched them over to smokeless powder. But, you know, they were originally designed around black powder. I would have to look that up. 30-06 and 8mm were both designed to be smokeless powder round. You know, they're both rimless. Yes, the 8mm is rimless. I should look that up. But you know, it's a full power 30 caliber. Wes was shooting at 500 yards today. Oh no, 1187 Gar was shooting at 500 yards today. That's awesome. I would love to have a range where I could reach out to 500 yards. 7.62 by 54R is the longest used military cartridge ever, over 100 years. Yeah, I think they still use it in the Dragunovs, don't they? In fact, I know they still use it in the Dragunovs. That's bad. Bob 67, how hard is it to get that license for that 12 gauge? I mean, I'm not saying this is, I'm not trying to like say, well, that's okay. You can have a single shot 12 gauge if you get a license. Go ahead, get the license. But still, I mean, I'm interested. If, you know, so here in America, we got this, the debate with concealed carry is shall issue or can issue. So there's states that are shall issue states. And so that means, you know, you're like in Georgia here, it's the county government. And so the assumption of the law here is that your county government shall issue you a concealed carry permit if you want one. And there's other states where they can issue you a concealed carry permit to have one. So is the shotgun license, is it like a shall issue? Okay, you want a shotgun, we're going to give you the license. Or it's like, well, you want a shotgun, but no. I'd be interested to know. I heard you at a clubhouse in England. You can't keep them at home. I think I've heard that too. Was shooting at 500 yards today. Now, Kay says 1187 stated he was shooting 500 yards. So you're just saying he shot 500 different, like, front yards, Kay? I'm confused. I thought it meant he was shooting at a 500-yard range. Wes says, I did some 500-meter shooting with the Nagant. I was hitting the pasture with every shot. Was that New England Firearms, Isaac? May issue, that's what it is. Shall issue or may issue. Thank you, not can issue. The engine block is cover, the car is concealment. That damn Wes is a smart son of a gun, you know that? All right, so did we beat Susan? We got back online. We were live streaming again. I'm allowed to have a small Swiss Army knife, but are you allowed to carry the small Swiss Army knife, Bob? Yeah, I remember we talked about this because we asked if you guys had even had an organization like the NRA that was even advocating for the expansion of firearms ownership, which is just so depressing because we got our Second Amendment straight from you guys. Harrington and Richardson became New England Firearms, yeah. Delaware is a May issue state also, just for my concealed carry last May. Only took a year and a half. Holy hell. Oh, yeah, 1187 says he was shooting at a 26-inch gong from 500 yards. That's pretty good shooting. We have 14 in chat. I can't even see the way this has just been a fiasco. So the last time it died, I got up and tripped over a cord and knocked the glass off the counter and shattered it everywhere. I think I've got it cleaned up, but you know, the way I clean is I'll just need to walk over it barefoot a few times and see what I missed. But better me than the kids. And then I finally got it. I tried to get it up and running on the laptop, just live stream from the laptop, which I never tried to do before because I assumed the camera's garbage. But it's like the camera's been hijacked by some other app. I can't figure out. Couldn't access the camera. So we finally got the phone hooked back up, got it all started, and I started it with the phone facing the wrong way. So I can't see, you know, the phone screen. It gives me the information, who, you know, how many people are in chat, how many people are watching, you know, how many people are watching, and likes and everything. So I'm kind of flying blind. I do have the chat up on the laptop with the picture frozen. Did that picture ever unfreeze, by the way? No, it looks like the picture's been frozen this whole time.
At least it's a good picture of me. If I have
Oh, that is so stupid. That makes me so mad. Ah, what the hell, man? Oh well, I guess y'all don't need to. I mean, that picture that's frozen up there is all that it looks like. Yeah, no, 500 yards on a 26-inch plate is pretty impressive. Zeus. Uh, yeah, I hate carry licenses at all. It's just if you can build a nuclear missile, then good on you. You can own a nuclear missile, as far as I'm concerned. But I do have my permit. I do it under protest. I'm buffering. Uh, just because I think it's more carrying than, and I, you know what, I mean, maybe it's a cowardice on my part, but I'm not going to carry without my license. I'm not going to break the laws, even though the laws are, I won't say unjust, because obviously I'll break unjust laws. Yeah, no, the laws are unjust. Well, anyway, it's just risk, benefit analysis. I lost audio. Damn it. Ah, damn it. Went again, huh? Oh, you can still hear me? Well, I don't mind, as long as y'all can hear audio, I don't mind hanging out. I was shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor and a 243 Winchester today. At 500 yards, that's good shooting. I don't care what you were. I don't care what caliber you were shooting. 500 yards is a long shot, even with a scope. All right, well, as long as you guys can hear me, we'll keep going as long as we can stay interesting. Pick frozen. Anywho, I am actually 6.5 is an interesting. I actually, 270 calibers. I think it's actually 6.8 if I'm not mistaken. But I think the differences are phenomenal. Isaac, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you. You make this much easier. Because sometimes when they say a bullet is like 38 special and 357 and 9mm are all the same thing, or the same diameter, but they're measuring them at different. Sometimes they're measuring the bore from the top of the lands to the top of the lands, or they can measure from the bottom of the grooves to the bottom of the grooves, and sometimes they measure, it's a marketing thing that they just choose. So yeah, the army is looking at a 6.8. I don't think they've chosen the round yet. They may have. You might have information I don't have yet, obviously. The last time I checked, they were looking at 3 different 6.8 millimeters. I don't think it's going to get adopted. The Army is all the time, looking at adopting something new, and they never end up doing it. The spew was this thing where they were, I can't remember what I think it was special purpose infantry weapon, or oh, I don't know, but they had this whole thing where they were trying to shoot like flechettes or something, or maybe it was a whole program where they were looking at different things. They had a rifle shooting flechettes, and then they had a rifle that fired 2 bullets for every cartridge had 2 or 3 bullets in it, and they were trying to. Oh, did y'all see Franklin Armory going to release a binary for the Glock? Dear Lord, would that be fun? That would just be a blast. I think my fire is dying down here. Let me go stoke the wood stove real quick. And then Wes has a good comment we'll talk about. All right, I'm back. Okay, so Franklin Armory going to release a binary trigger for the Glock. That would just be holy hell fun. Just a blast. And prototype type at SHOT Show. Okay, so Wes has a series of good statements. He starts off with saying shooting past 300 yards is a game for most. It is fun, but not something they can see. I agree with the sentiment of what you say. I think most men can reliably hit a torso-sized target at 300 yards. Now, I'm not saying that isn't good enough for hunting, obviously. Because at 300 yards, most things have lost a lot of energy, and you need a good hit, for that to be an ethical shot to take. I think that's what you're saying. Because your next comment says, I used to feel comfortable shooting at anything inside of 300 yards. Now I wouldn't take a shot on an animal outside of 200, and I prefer to be within 150. Yeah, and for hunting, you're right, because, you're shooting at I'm making hand gestures at the camera that you guys can't see. 1187 GAR, I've got a couple of different, I actually just put a piece of dogwood in there, which is rare because I usually won't cut a dogwood because it's just a beautiful tree, and there's a story about it and the crucifixion and the resurrection, and it's a beautiful little story. And, I mean, it's not true, but it's a fun little story, and so I won't cut dogwoods usually. But every once in a while, I'll end up with some dogwood. Just a couple times I've dropped a tree and it landed on a dogwood. So I won't just waste the dogwood if I end up having to cut it. And dogwood is this incredibly dense, hard wood. And they don't get big. That's part of the story. They're a useless tree for most anything. And the legend is the dogwood used to be the tallest, mightiest, straightest tree in the forest, and it was used for building ships and giant buildings, and it was very proud of itself because it was such a tall, strong tree, straight tree. And then one day, they came and cut a dogwood and fashioned it into a cross and hung the Messiah on the cross, obviously crucified Jesus. And the tree was so distraught and mournful and cursed its, that it was tall and strong and straight. And so, the story goes that Jesus said, well, don't worry, it's not your fault. I tell you what, from here on out, no one will ever use you this way ever again. And ever since then, all dogwoods have been, small, twisty, useless trees, but have that beautiful flower, that beautiful white flower with 4 petals, and in each petal there's a blood-colored wound. It's a very beautiful story, and if you care about that type of stuff, it's pretty impactful. So I try not to cut dogwood. It's really dense. I mean, incredibly the densest wood I've ever cut, and it makes really good coals. I mean, it burns forever, and then it leaves this good solid coal afterwards. So it's actually a really good firewood if you've got a hot fire. I just put it on a fire that's dying, so I probably have to put some little stuff on top. I prefer to burn red oak. That's my favorite. That's like the best of every world. It's a dense wood. It's got a lot of heat in it, but it's easy to split relatively. I mean, it's still oak, but a red oak splits a lot easier than most oak. And it's pretty straight, and it's just a good all-around wood. It dries quick. So if I can get my hands on red oak, that's what I prefer to burn. Right now, I'm actually burning a lot of pine because I had some pines I had to take down, and I have a wood stove. I don't burn. So people will tell you don't burn pine in a house, and they'll say you'll get chimney fires. And there's some truth to that, especially if you have a fireplace, because pine burns real dirty, and the soot has a lot of creosote in it as it goes up the chimney. That hot air with a fireplace, 80% of your heat goes up the chimney, and so this is really hot air, and it's expanded a lot, and it can carry a lot of creosote, and as it goes up the chimney, it cools. And as the air cools, it can't carry that creosote anymore, so the creosote falls out and coats the pipe. And then you can get a buildup on it, and then one day a spark shoots up the chimney a little higher than normal, and you get a chimney fire. Now, if your chimney if you built correctly, it should be able to withstand a chimney fire. A chimney fire should not necessarily mean a house fire, but it can. It's still dangerous. You don't want it. But with a wood stove, so on a fireplace, 80% of your heat goes up the pipe and about 20% stays down in the firebox. Well, with a wood stove, it's reversed. 80% of your heat stays in the firebox and only 20% goes up the pipe. So your air is much cooler going up the pipe anyway, so it can carry much less creosote to begin with. But if you've got it has a secondary chamber where the smoke comes out of the firebox, and before it goes to the chimney, it hits the second chamber where a blast of fresh air hits it with fresh oxygen. Because what happens is there's just not enough oxygen down in the firebox to burn all the fuel in the smoke. So that creosote could actually still burn. It's hot enough and it's combustible enough. It doesn't burn in the firebox because there's not enough oxygen in there. So when it comes up in a modern wood stove and hits that secondary chamber, gets another blast of fresh air, then a lot of it should burn right there anyway. So if you've got a modern wood stove, it's really no big deal to burn pine. So I shy away from pine a little bit.